Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the first of our Q&As on the course Musicians of Change, PGCEI. I'm the course leader, Katrina, and this is Steph, the program manager. And really, we're just here to have a bit of time hearing from some of the people who have done the course. We have a graduate of the course, Peter. And we have a current student on the course, Jess, and we have Rachel with us who will be hosting the session today. She teaches on the course and she is a teacher with Music Masters.
I'd kind of just recently started a job in Harmony Upper North, working with large groups of primary school children, and I was just really interested in kind of upping my teaching game, not just kind of specifically on the instrument, but also just working with groups. And I felt like I really wanted to find a course that would really focus on that specifically. So that's what kind of drew me to this course.
Did you look at other courses, and what was it that particularly made you kind of dedicate yourself to this course as opposed to another one?
Well, I think, yeah, I was actually interested in Suzuki training, but I think although that is really great training to have, I think this course was really geared specifically to my setting that I was going to be working in, and yeah, I think I was kind of learning on the job quite a lot from observing other amazing teachers, and I kind of felt like I wanted to just get more into this world and get kind of a network around myself of people doing this kind of work in these big groups.
What do you feel is the biggest difference between doing this program and doing a master's at another university, or a course from another training provider?
Well, my case is very specific because I have a mobility disorder. I have a connective tissue disorder, so travel and moving and things are difficult and painful and expensive because trains and buses are not really an option for me at the moment. So that was a huge thing. Feels very liberating to be just as equally included in a course alongside completely able-bodied people and not feel like I'm missing out on anything, or feeling like I have to push myself to a point of pain and exhaustion in order to do what other people are doing, and also because, especially at this time, everything is expensive. You have to work a lot. I have a ridiculously busy schedule, but this has been so easy hard work, but easy to fit in around my teaching schedule, and the fact that I could tailor it so that I can use the work that I was already doing in order to study for and apply to the course, rather than taking a year out of my usual life and going somewhere else to start a whole new thing. It wasn't going to be possible, and yet it means that no matter where I am, it works as long as I have a laptop. So,
Jess, thank you for sharing. I had no idea about that, for example, with you, and I'm interested to know then, because since the pandemic, loads of people have said, "Oh, Zoom, I don't want to be on Zoom anymore." But actually, for example, I've still really loved, and a lot of my work has continued on Zoom, and it has actually been a real gift. And I sense perhaps that it's actually been a real gift for you, that you can just feel incredibly, included in the course. And
I wish that it was the same in other areas of life. People are so pleased. I'm lucky because I can walk most of the time. I'm not wheelchair bound. I feel very privileged from that perspective, but all through the pandemic, people are creating Zoom parties with their families and things like that, and suddenly no one's doing that anymore, and anyone who can't get out and travel all the time is just like, well, I'm still here. So it feels brilliant to have the option to be included in that way, and I think it's a really important thing moving forward. And I think I mentioned this in another meeting that I had with Musicians of Change, which is that kids have the same thing. Some kids have a lot of maybe social anxiety, mental health problems, physical disabilities, that make it just impossible, or their parents might have physical disabilities that mean they can't bring their child somewhere. So, you know, it's not for everyone, but it is a really, really extremely important tool for inclusivity in terms of physical abilities.
I think it's amazing, and I think it's really powerful to hear from you and to be reminded of the power of community through a screen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just going to say, like, there's an element there is an element of that for me as well, because I'm kind of far north, and I feel like I'm living with the Vikings up here, and I'm not close to London, and it was just amazing to meet so many people. I mean, throughout the UK and Europe as well. And I felt like I was connected to so many fresh new ideas, and so yeah, I can definitely relate to that. It was just amazing to meet so many different perspectives and people working in really interesting settings as well. And yeah, it was really eye opening for me. And yes, it was all on my screen, so it was great in that respect.
Sort
Really.
of, how did the program help you shape your identity as an educator, if at all?
Yeah, I think I'm much more interested now in the kind of interpersonal aspects of my teaching, the kind of psychological aspects of my teaching, and I think really specifically kind of like motivation, what's motivating my students, and how to kind of get them in the driver's seat of the lessons. And I took so many things from my mentor on that topic, and the great thing about the course, I think, was like I got these things from my mentor, but then I had to write a paper about them, so I had to articulate how it was really changing my teaching, and it forced me to really implement it, and for a stretch of time, so that it would really stick, and I'd really see the effects of it. So yeah, I'd say it's definitely changed a lot of kind of my day-to-day approach with my students in that way, kind of trying to make my teaching more student-led.
Did you find the process of reflection, and for you, Jess, you're finding this, are you finding the process of reflection a really helpful tool to you in shaping you as educators?
Yeah, I think it's helpful to have the kind of guidance on how to be reflective about things, because obviously especially if you're freelancing, or if you just got so much to do, you tend to just drive your way through things and just keep going and keep going, and don't necessarily have you don't give yourself permission to stop and think about it. It's just kind of survival mode. So it's quite nice to be able to stop and think about what's working, what might not be working, what could I try, what have I tried before, what have other people tried, what differences could I make to the way that I tried it, things like that, so that I feel much more involved with what I'm doing, rather than just feeling like kind of I can't think of the word, kind of just it's happening to me. I felt like my teaching was happening to me, and now I can take charge of it.
I love that. The teaching's happening to me. I so get that. It's such a good way of putting it, Jess. It's kind of like you kind of start being, it's like being on a surfboard and just being carried to shore without knowing anything about the journey that you're on. And I think that's the beauty of these courses or studying, is being able to like press pause and go, let's see what I'm actually doing. Like, let's investigate what it is and kind of question it and challenge it. And that's a really good thing, I think. I hope so anyway. I hope that you're finding that. Peter, did anything surprise you about the programme? I'm hoping good surprises.
Yeah, well, I think I was surprised. I knew that it was going to be about group teaching, but I still sort of expected very kind of instrument specific kind of content, and the focus to be very instrument specific, and even noticed kind of in the first module a lot of the examples that my peers were focusing on were very instrument specific, and there was this kind of, I think quite a few of us were kind of thinking in that fairly narrow way. And then as it went on, I kind of realized there's just so many more aspects to what I'm doing than just this kind of instrument thing. There's so many things about well, kind of like what I said before about motivating students, about how you're working with the group, how to kind of make the learning more student led, and just the broader thing, stakeholders, the environment you're working in, the setting you're working in. It just kind of, it was like it panned out in a really nice way, and it made me feel much more kind of confident in my workplace, and also going into other teaching settings. Yeah, so I guess that was surprising.
Wondering whether you could tell us about a module that has particularly influenced or inspired or impacted, or all of those, on your teaching.
Yeah, I think the second module, the pedagogy one, that we've just finished a bit ago, is the kind of the most influential one for me, because I've been, bass teachers are hard to come by, so I've been doing it since I was about 14, which is great. It means I have loads of experience kind of accidentally learning how to teach. So I knew that some things that I did worked well,
mm-hmm.
and I knew that some things that I had done before didn't work so well with certain children. And I have ADHD and suspected autism, so a lot of my focus is on how to engage neurodivergent children in the way that I wasn't engaged as a child. So yeah, being able to, because I wasn't aware, I had this conversation with my mentor, it's like, I know what I'm doing, but I can't tell you what it is. I just can do it. So being able to have that module to really dive deep into what other people are doing and studying, and these well-known, practices and methods of teaching, and being like, oh, that's what I do. I didn't realize that was why that worked. Yeah, it was good. And I feel a lot more clued in now. I feel less like I'm just drowning in a sea of knowledge. I feel more like, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing. I'm a teacher,
Yay! So would you say you've got a bit more confidence in that now?
Yeah, definitely.
That's really cool. How did the program impact you and your students, and sort of the teaching environment within which you teach?
Yeah, it kind of, I think being able to watch a lot of other teachers really kind of helped that, because it's kind of like a mirror. I could see the things that were working really well for those teachers or weren't working quite as well, and I was kind of able to reflect on my own, how things were going with my students, and like, yeah, just how was I pacing my lessons, so they're really clearly they're really engaged with what we were doing, and how was I kind of like, how often was I just kind of in the driver's seat explaining things, and how often were they actually kind of teaching things back to me, or explaining themselves, and how often was I kind of checking that they'd really deeply understood things. So I guess, yeah, it was kind of a gradual process of just seeing so many different teachers working, and so many different personalities, that, yeah, I think it kind of really gave me, yeah, a different perspective, just seeing different ways to do it.
You have a mentor, you're kind of assigned a mentor. Now that might be one of the teachers from Music Masters, or it could be some teacher that we are closely affiliated with at our charity, and then you get assigned with one of those, and they mentor you through the year. You get 3 observations, and of course you go and watch a lot of either their teaching or other teachers teaching. And this question is about, what was it like to be mentored by someone from another educational program? And what was that kind of dynamic and relationship like with your mentor, or is with your mentor, Jess, because it's still going on, sorry.
Just give me a second, my dog is barking. Stop it. Right when I'm trying to unmute. There we go. Yeah, it definitely feels like I have a guide through the ocean of things to do, especially because I don't actually know if the mentors are assigned according to instrument, general, it kind of ish.
Yeah. We tried to.
Nodding, yes, okay. So it was good. I liked that, my mentor Dan knew what I was talking about and knew what I was teaching about, and it was easy to kind of talk about more specific things with him that it wouldn't have been covered on the course, if you see what I mean, like the little not instrument specific, but maybe like department specific things. And yeah, it's a good place to go. His email address is a good place to go when I feel like I have 1,000 things to think about, which is often. And I need to, get it down to maybe only 2 or 3 things to think about. Yeah, he's quite good at, what's the word? I'm not good with my words today. cutting the bits off that I don't need. Cutting the bits off that I don't need. Saying actually you don't need to worry about that, or you're overthinking that. Just email Steph.
Have you gotten to watch him teach yet, Jess? Your mentor?
Pardon?
Have you gotten to watch
I
him
haven't
teach?
actually been
Oh,
able
okay.
to watch him teach just
Yeah,
yet.
because that was a real highlight for me with my mentor. It was like I had this relationship with him throughout the year, and he was just wonderful with the modules. And then getting to see him teach, it was toward the end of the year because of COVID that I was able to watch him teach. But it was so good to get to know this teacher over a period of time and get their feedback, and then actually see it practiced in action. It was great. He was such a creative. Just such a lovely teacher. I got so many great, really practical ideas from him, and also was really inspired by his just kind of general approach to teaching.
I think that's really important. By the way, I get totally terrified when you guys come watch my lessons, because I'm suddenly like, am I practicing what I preach? It's so confronting. And actually, on that, as a mentor on the course, I think that I get as much out of it as you guys do, maybe more, because I just get that constant opportunity of being confronted by observing other teachers. I get challenged by what I may or may not be doing in my teaching, or what I think I'm not doing so well at. It makes me incredibly open for criticism. It makes me open to be asked questions that I might not know the answer to. It challenges my humility, and I think it makes me more flexible as a teacher, and I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful for that opportunity. So I really think that actually the course, I'm not paid to say this, by the way, I actually think the course is very much a two-way project, and I hope that your mentors, you were on a level with them, right? You were working with them, not against them, and I hope that they weren't pushing ideas on you, but were rather just kind of facilitating discussion with you. And Jess, I love that you said that actually sometimes my mentor was simply there to say, stop overthinking it. I've got you. I'm hearing you. Don't worry, it's okay. And a lot of my role is that. And hopefully giving teachers the kind of extra nudge to say, you're doing a great job. We're not here to criticize you. We're here to go, this is amazing. What you're doing is great. Now let's just experiment and try this. It's basically just one giant laboratory. I hope that the course is just a laboratory for experimentation and trying stuff and seeing what works and what doesn't work. Because I think the portfolio, I don't know if Peter or Jess, you can talk about the portfolio, but the portfolio is not a list of everything that's going well. It's not a list of everything that's going right. It's about your journey as a teacher on this course. And it's fascinating to read. I'm sure Katrina and Steph will back me up on this. They're fascinating to read when it comes from a very honest place of discovery and an honest place of confrontation and discovering what you possibly didn't know or you couldn't work out. I don't know. Do you want to just briefly, both of you, talk maybe a bit about your portfolios, that journey?
I don't know, just you might not have gotten to that. I kind of waited sort of to the last minute to amass all of that at the end of the course, but it was really interesting to write that. And actually it was I was writing that after I'd done some really interesting observations as well, so it was kind of great timing. And just for the record, that I did watch your lesson, Rachel, and it was brilliant. I loved your group lesson that I was able to watch. I was like a 3-hour delayed train down to London, and I did catch your last lesson of the day, and it was just totally worth it. So yeah, the portfolio. I mean, it was kind of amazing. It was, kind of like I said before, it was so broad, so many different topics to write on, and to reflect on. Throughout the year, but especially at the end of the year when you're kind of looking for what you kind of taken away, kind of taking stock of it all. And yeah, that process kind of pushed me to really diversify the types of teachers I was observing as well. I went and I observed like a classroom teacher, just an English class, and I
Right.
observed in quite a few different settings and really interesting settings. So yeah, it was really good for me. Ties into that kind of reflection thing again, where you're having to really take stock, pause, and take stock of what you're doing, and make sure that you kind of not just momentarily kind of inspired by one lesson you watch, but you're actually really taking it on board and giving it a try.
I love that. Yeah. Going to watch an English class, brilliant, because we're not isolated in music education. It's connected to a much bigger pedagogical picture. And that's a really important thing to say, is that teaching is valuable wherever it's happening. I mean, just watching a parent and a child or a guardian walk down the street with their child is an amazing teaching opportunity, in terms of interaction and environment and all of those things. So I love that, Peter. That's a really important point, and actually something I'm going to bring up with my own mentees, I think. Thank you for that. Jess, I mean, I don't know whether you've done any of your portfolio. This is not like we're highlighting what you have or haven't done. I just wondered if you're thinking about your portfolio and kind of how that's been helpful, I guess, or...
Yeah. Well, let me explain a little bit about how I tend to work, first of all, just for some context. I call it a distractive method, which is not as terrible as it sounds, compared to a constructive method. So, and I've always been this way. It's probably the ADHD. My brain's full of things and I need to get it out before I can make them sound intelligent. So, instead of, it's more like sculpture rather than painting, right? So I start off with a big hunk of rock rather than a blank canvas. And instead of painting my canvas in tiny little bits and making it beautiful as I go along, I have my huge lump of info dump. And then when I need to, I chip away until it ends up looking pretty. So on that note, my portfolio itself has nothing in it at the minute, but all the things that are going to go in it are in an enormous document Google form, because I've figured out, again, I struggle with routine and things like that. So what I do is, for all of my students, I have a Google form for each of them, and I fill it in after every single lesson, right? So I just made an extra one called group teaching, and then every time I had it, I made myself a form, what class it was, how long it was, what was I teaching, a little thing to upload a lesson plan, which standard I think it applies to, anything, incidents that I can write about it, and then that's all automatically goes into a big spreadsheet. So when it comes to the day when I have to make it look pretty, it's all already there.
Yes, it's amazing. I want that.
I have to interrupt. I can see Steph's heart melting when you see the spreadsheet.
You should know, Jess, I will be making you repeat that to all of your fellow students, because that is just beautiful.
So it takes the fear away for me, because this huge portfolio looks fantastic, and I'm excited to put all of the information in, but on a day-to-day basis, that's just not something that I'm going to be able to do. So I have a Google form attached to my website that I use for my work, and it's just really good that way as well, because then if something really important happens, I can just whack it in my form and I know I won't forget it, so I don't have to then at the end of the year go back. And I'm lucky that at the beginning of the course it was said, don't leave this until the last minute, because then you just have to you'll have to really try and remember everything that's happened over the last year. So I won't have to do that. I'll have this diary, and I can pick out the good bits. And I definitely think having deciding on those 4 important teaching standards to work on, and then so I can think about, if something happens in the class, I can be like, oh, I can write about that for this standard, and then I can just plop it in my form and not think about it until I go back to it. So that's the way I'm choosing to tackle the portfolio, and I do think it's really, really good, and I'm excited to see how it turns out at the end of the year, because I think it'll be a really accurate presentation of how I've progressed.
How did the program affect your perceptions of the possibilities with group teaching? So the possibilities of group teaching, did the course open up a different kind of idea of what that might be?
Yeah, I think through the course, having that kind of exposure to different settings, I think really opened my eyes to again how you're interacting with the setting that you're in, and how you might be able to best serve that setting. So, you know, my kind of experience of group teaching had been in this kind of one group of schools in South Leeds, and then to see it in at Music Masters, to see it at the Color String School, like completely, you know, very different groups of students, with very different kind of mindsets behind the teaching. Um, I think that really opened my eyes to like how can I best take advantage of the space I'm in, um, and what things like in this community can I access? You know, what stakeholders do I have access to that I can kind of liaise with and get on side with me? What things about my environment can I use to my best advantage to actually have kind of a like a ripple effect in my lessons, and kind of just create a really positive environment around my lessons, and have a kind of a positivity in the community that I'm working in. So I guess a big thing for me was just exposure to those different settings through the course.
It's interesting you say that, Peter, because I think it's important to point out that this course is not a course of comparison, because we're all working in so very different contexts and with all different influences within that. And I think for anyone thinking or considering about the course, it's really important to like really like acknowledge that it's not a case of going to see that and saying, well, that's better than that, or that works better, because it's all contextual. And everyone's working on these very diverse educational programs that all hold a value. And it's about taking things that you can apply elsewhere, but not getting kind of ground down or bogged down with comparison. I think that having kind of mentored on the course for a couple of years, I think it's really important that it doesn't become that, because it's not. We're all working in very different places, and you know, it's just not about that. Just to remove any anxiety, I think, of anyone thinking, oh, I'm not doing it this well, or I'm not doing that well. It's not about that. It's about enriching your own teaching and enriching your own journey with things you see, and equally you'll see things you don't like. Jess, this is my last question to you. Has your experience on the programme so far broadened your sort of horizons with career opportunities within music education?
Yes. There we go. End of story. No. Yeah. So, like I said, I really felt like all of my training was in my instrument, which is fine. That's what I went to uni to do. But actually, all the bits of my undergrad that I was most interested in were not the performance parts, which may have been a byproduct of not actually being able to play my instrument without it hurting very much. But you know, whatever, silver linings, because you know, all the little extra bits that were just like, maybe you might want to do this after your degree, were the bits that I found the most valuable. And now I have this opportunity to work, you know, career opportunities. Yeah, I'm not really planning to go anywhere, because I'm really, you know, enjoying where I work at the minute at XYZ, because it's a really tiny company. There's only 15 or so people, but 15 really motivated, you know, committed people that all have got the same, you know, things in mind, but different skill sets, you know. So I feel really valued that I have a totally different set of skills to everyone that was already there, as you know, incredible drummers and guitarists and things like that. And then, so I feel like I can use what I've done to build my own career within a small company that I'm already at, if you see what I mean. You know, it gives me loads of tools that I can use to then pass on tips to the other teachers where I work, or, you know, we can then offer me to other schools services outside of just one-on-one peripatetic teaching, which is just a great way for the business to expand and get to more children. Because I like being a teacher, because, you know, no matter what happens in the government or politics or anything, there will always be children who want to learn music. So as many of those that I can get to in a good way, better.
I love that statement, Jess. Thank you. That's such a nice way to close that. Thank you. Peter, having done the course, has the course sort of acted as a springboard for you into other things? And if if so, what?
Yeah, well, it has helped me quite a lot with interviews. It swung a few interviews, which has been really nice. And then kind of more recently, I mean, I think I've had the confidence from the course to kind of uh, to seek out opportunities that give me the kind of autonomy to just kind of, I guess, to serve my community in the way that I feel like I can best do that, if that makes sense. I think it's just given me that kind of courage to go out and try new things and start my own and strike out on my own and kind of build in a way that I feel like is going to be really meaningful teaching. So yeah, it's given me a lot of confidence and some definite income perks.
Did you find that sense of community, and have you still been in touch with the community since you left, Peter? And Jess, are you kind of finding an inviting community in recent masters? Maybe it's not.
Yeah, so we have the current PGCE students, we have a WhatsApp, and it's great because it kind of, sometimes someone will just send a message like, I've lost complete track of what we're doing, and someone else will be like, well, this is what I'm doing, this is what we've said in the last thing, and this is where I'm at. And sometimes it can be really, really helpful if you're just like, to figure out what's happening, what you're doing. And then there's also asking for advice on a thing, or one of my favorite so far is one of the violin, because I teach all the string instruments at XYZ, so I've had to teach myself the violin, viola, and the cello, and some, but and I'm quite good actually, I'd be surprised for a double bass player. If I can't joke at myself, so then you guys can't do it. So one of the other violin teachers have had this thing with putting a little party hat on the end of the violin, so that as a game to encourage the little ones to hold the violin up. So then obviously, being me, I had to get little witchy hats. So I had the tiny little witch, and it's like, anyway, I'm getting off track. Yeah, so in this WhatsApp chat, ideas like that, or just something, recently there's been a lot of, hey guys, I had this win today. I'm becoming this, have had this job opportunity. And it's just, everyone is so happy for each other and supportive, and also, yeah, nice.
Amazing. It's not a competitive. I love that you're not finding it a horribly competitive thing, which often we get in kind of music courses. I found that when I was, studying. But anyway, that's really cool to hear. And Peter, are you still in touch with us?
Yeah, absolutely. The WhatsApp group is still going, so you got that to look forward to, Jess. Yeah, there's always, I mean, all sorts of things in there, where to get a bridge for a cello, or what to, I've got this problem with this, a parent or student or whatever. And there's really good, I mean, we're a bigger cohort, I think, probably than the current one, but there's just so much good advice on there, and always kind of, a lot of kind of camaraderie, and there's now and again there are pictures of people they've met up somewhere at some in either another training course or something like that. So it's really nice. We keep in touch quite well, and yeah, it's a great resource for us actually.
Amazing. Guys, thank you both. Jess, Peter, thank you so much for being so vulnerable and so open and so honest about everything that you are experiencing, Jess, and what you did experience, Peter, from the course. It is so helpful to hear your experiences. And yeah, thank you so much for taking time to share with us. Amazing.